This video is my fourth preview of the Seahawks-Patriots Super Bowl matchup in California on Sunday. I'm going to focus this one on the levels of danger and the versatility that JSN offers against any defense in the NFL. He was tremendous in 2025, 119 catches, 73% catch percentage, while leading the league in yards per touch. Having said all that, the Patriots' pass defense has to be respected, at least from a statistical standpoint, but definitely when watching the film as well. I've got 10 plays queued up here. We are looking at this from a somewhat simplistic angle, JSN versus Christian Gonzalez, who's an incredibly talented corner that I think would start for the Seahawks if he was on the roster on defense. But it's a little bit of an overgeneralization to say that New England is going to assign Gonzalez to shadow JSN across the field. That's not the nature of their defensive structure, number one. Number two, I don't think it would benefit them over the course of a 60-minute game. We're going to get the film started here, and I'm generally going to focus, at least on the first part, on JSN and some of his matchups against other high-level, all-pro caliber corners. In this case, we'll look at two plays from their Week 7 home win against the Houston Texans. At the point where we pick this up, it's 14-0 Seattle, a very sloppy game offensively where they turned the football over a ton and allowed Houston to kind of hang around. This is a 3rd and 8, and he's going to be matched up against Derek Stingley. So there's a lot going on on this route concept. It's an empty set, and this is something that if you're a Patriots fan watching this one, you may not have seen a ton of this before. Basically, there's no running back on the field. Kubiak will go to this when he really needs a first down. I would say that I have it on film maybe 6 times this year. So you've got 2 tight ends set up to the top side, and then their best 3 receivers, well, their best 3 receivers at the time, JSN, Torrey Horton, and Cooper Kupp. At this point, now that would obviously include Rashid Shaheed. In this game, JSN had 8 catches, 123 yards, 1 touchdown. Really, he's just consistent. And if you give him a two-way go, and he's got that here, then he's going to win that matchup. And it doesn't really matter to me who the corner is, unless it's someone who can be, a little bit physical in the beginning and kind of impede or disrupt his release. And Seattle's really, from a formation standpoint, kind of prevented that from happening by this bunch set. Essentially, you can't overcommit up here for the possibility of JSN, releasing to the outside, and then you, as the DB, Derek Stingley, end up getting picked. My point is here, Kubiak does a lot of things from a tactical standpoint to really take advantage of the skills that JSN offers. And in this case, you've got a high-level matchup against Derek Stingley. Anytime he's got a two-way go, you're going to see problems for the DB. As JSN approaches Stingley, the opportunity to win over the middle, to win to the outside like he does, or press a vertical, you could actually refer to that as a 3-way go. He's just too good to not win in those situations when the quarterback has time. And again, I think it relates to the formation that is presented here. There's no running back on the field, so I would call this an 0-2 personnel group. Look for this on maybe a critical 3rd down or an early, 1st or 2nd down if Seattle wants to kind of throw the Patriots defense off as far as, how they set up their defense, what personnel they match with. It's a great formation. Of course, there's, no run threat on the field at all unless you use, some type of jet sweep to one of the receivers. If you want to slow down JSN, at least in 2025, you've got to allocate extra guys. Hedge, a safety, inside linebackers over to him to kind of get inside of those passing lanes. That's really what the Vikings did, in the midseason matchup to hold him to only 2 catches. Same game here, Week 7 against the Texans. We're now into the 3rd quarter. This is the other high-level corner that the Texans have is Kamari Lassiter. Really soloed down here to the bottom side of our screen into the boundary. And that's generally where Christian Gonzalez is going to be located. This blue line illustrates that the ball is on the left hash. So this is the boundary or the short side of the field. This is the wide side or the field. Of course, in the NFL, the hashes are kind of close together. So, some people don't refer to it. But Lassiter is another high-level corner with great man coverage skills. This happens to be a 21 personnel group for the Seahawks. Going to motion a tight end cross. He's going to go out into the flats. Really just an over-Yankee concept. I do think it's important to mention the data that the Patriots have put up as far as their defense. Only not allowing 200 yards passing in the last 10 weeks. I only have access to 5 of those games at this point. But these are the types of plays where no matter who the corner is, Carlton Davis III, Christian Gonzalez, one of the nickel DBs, if there's a two-way go for JSN, and in this case, he kind of carries the corner to the inside a little bit, and then brings this route back to the top of the numbers before, moving towards the sideline, a little bit of a shake, and then an out concept. Darnold knows where to go with the football because that's his guy. He's the most reliable receiver that they've got, but he's also extremely explosive down the field, as you'll see on this next clip. I just think that with no leverage help, no safety anywhere to hedge, to allow the corner, to hedge, to one side, basically give him leverage, it's going to be a very difficult matchup for anyone to slow him down over the course of 60 minutes. One more play here from a JSN standpoint, then we'll get to the Gonzalez film. Really going to focus that on the playoffs and their Week 16 matchup against the Ravens. This is something I mentioned in the second, or actually the third preview that I did. I put that out on Sunday evening. It's a 6-2 look by the Steelers, and they really get taken advantage of here. We're into the fourth quarter. I think a little over 5 minutes left, maybe close to 6 minutes left. And he's matched up down at the bottom against Jalen Ramsey. At this point, with no safety help because the middle of the field safety, he's not even really matching this route, this over concept from Cooper Kupp. The middle of the field safety is kind of dropping down to almost match the pace of this route here. So it really looks like man to me. I just don't think that you're going to see, if JSN's on the field, you're not going to get this 6-2 look by New England, in my opinion. I actually, explained that in great detail in the third preview that I did. And it was a full-length film study, about 40, 44 minutes, somewhere in that range with 10 or 12 plays shown. I'm trying to get as many of these out as possible. I recognize, some people don't like long-form content. But if you do get a six-man front by the Patriots, I think it's going to be a 6-1 with one solo inside linebacker. And what that would do is basically, imagine this player's not here right now, don't have the editing skills or the program to do that. You would get a two-high safety structure. Play a 6-1, two-high safety structure, very similar to what the Patriots used against the Rams in the 2018 Super Bowl. I've predicted that that's what I think you're going to see against 12 personnel. This happens to be a 21 personnel, so you got one fullback in the form of Oots and then a tight end, once again, motioning across. Makes it basically look like Max Pro. Okay, so you've got Cooper Kupp running the over. The safety's, getting underneath of that, but I think he was actually matching the tight end's motion across, and that leaves Jalen Ramsey, one-on-one with JSN down the field. This is really easy for Sam Darnold if there's time. If he has time, and the Patriots pass rush this year, they've only generated 34 sacks. They have certain guys. They're a sub-package defense, in my opinion, on run downs. They'll have certain OLBs in the game, and then on pass pro situations, you can expect to see Harold Landry in there, probably their best pass rush guy from the perspective of his output, his production during his whole career. Where I do think or speculate that you might get a 6-2 look with one high safety is if JSN and or Rashid Shaheed are off the field and the Seahawks are in some version of 12 personnel or even 21. Basically, if they do not present a deep threat at the wide receiver position, I would expect the Patriots to try to steal a play, if you will, in allocating another player to the front 6, 7, or even 8, to use my 6-2 analogy, to stop or shut down Kenneth Walker III. All right, we're gonna move to some film of Gonzalez here. You often see him line up into the boundary. So the ball is on the right hash here. The short side or the boundary side of the field is up here, and that's generally where you're going to see Christian Gonzalez. I'll give you a couple of plays that go against that theory, but I would consider him a boundary side corner. I do have some thoughts or ideas about maybe attacking Carlton Davis III to the field. He's played spectacular this year, even though he did pick up a number of defensive penalties. So this seems to be, it showed up twice in this game, and I'll show you both plays. There seems to be some possible communication issues between these two DBs, Gonzalez and then the safety to his side. In this game in particular, it's a 3rd and 10, and Stidham has got plenty of time to throw the football. A one-man escort, screen out to the bottom side of our screen to the field and into the boundary. You're getting Mims running a vertical, and you can see the safety has got his eyes set up to the trip side. I think this is like a quarters type coverage. I'm not willing to call this, anything like quarter, half or anything like that. It is 3rd and 10, so sometimes you get these safeties they'll have more depth than the second level defenders. To me, these guys are underneath droppers. That's pretty obvious. The nickel and the 2 inside linebackers. This safety is looking for work from the other side, and I just don't know why he's not identifying a little bit sooner. First of all, number one, you've got a tight end as number 3. So If this guy, the wide receiver, was number 3, yes, you have more of an opportunity for a climb concept, to kind of try to win over the top of this corner. Usually on a climb concept, you get something like, let's say, an out route by the boundary side X. And then if 3 is fast, meaning it's a wide receiver, perhaps you get something like that to try to run onto this vacated space, since the corner, in this case Christian Gonzalez, would be occupied by that shorter route. Hopefully I explain that in a way that makes sense, but that's not what happens here. You get a tight end releasing to the outside. So really we've removed trips. We've removed 3 as a possibility to get vertical towards you, meaning this safety. I think Gonzalez believes he's got some type of help to his inside, so he's taking outside leverage. Gonzalez, you can see the way that he's playing this. He's not turning right now. His cushion is broken, so if he's man, he's losing. And this is not man. He's waiting for the safety to possibly take over this vertical route, in my opinion. Stidham hits the guy up top. It's a huge play, leads to their first touchdown. I don't know that this is systemic to their defense. I mean, look, they haven't given up a ton of passing yards. So, you obviously aren't too many of these big plays down the field, in particular on 3rd and 10. Like I said, I've only got 5 games filmed. What I will say is you get 2 plays in a row here, 2 consecutive snaps, where the safety to Gonzalez's side and him, those 2 didn't seem to be on the same page. This is the same play from the end zone angle. You won't notice anything about Gonzalez here at all, but there's the safety. So he's rolled up, and then he'll drop back, but he's just not thinking about helping Gonzalez at all. I do want to focus on the pass rush here. If this is what you're going to get from the Patriots, a 4-man rush, they're trying to pick, basically. 91 is trying to pick the guard, and then Milton Williams is going to loop around after briefly, grabbing the guard. And then the same thing on the other side, slightly different in that 44 is actually going to go like all the way across the formation. I think that's just an adaptation during the play. And then Christian Barmore is trying to get around, loop to the outside. Seahawks pass pro has been great all year. Darnold has only been sacked 27 times. Having said that, the Rams got to him 3 times, 3 sacks. And San Francisco had 2 the week before in the division round. I think if you can get that sack number to be 2 or less, and inconsistent pressure by the Patriots, it gives Darnold a great opportunity. He's been exceptional in 2025, throwing the football. Of course, you have, I think, 10 or maybe 11 interceptions, turnovers, that kind of offset that. I don't think the issues here are, first of all, they're not large-scale issues. At this point, you're looking for small openings in a pass defense that's been spectacular for the last 10 weeks, and this is one that I've identified. I think it's pretty obvious, and multiple people probably have as well. 21's a really good player for New England, don't get me wrong, but there might be an issue with eye discipline. So this is the very next snap, okay? After converting that 3rd and 10 to, I think it's Marvin Mims. And so you got the same dynamic over here to the top side of our screen. Gonzalez and the safety. You can see the safety is actually looking at 1. That's Cortland Sutton. But then on the snap, there's going to be, first of all, a motion and then a play-action fake. This is a 6-1 look with a 2-high safety structure. This is what I expect the Patriots to come out in against 12 personnel and or 21 at times to try to stop or slow down the run game, but also provide them a lot of options and versatility in pass coverage from that 2-high safety structure. 48, their Sam linebacker, hybrid inside linebacker, outside linebacker, a little bit slow getting out here to Stidham, slower than other guys are going to be, 33, 44, and Landry. But look at the eyes of the boundary side safety. We'll rewind this a couple of times, and then I'll also give you the end zone angle. I think he's looking at Sutton now. Sutton releases to the inside. The same thing this receiver is doing. The only difference is this receiver is crossing this safety's face, so he picks it up visually easier, whereas Sutton is planting and then running for the pylon. 21 is just too far inside. It's not Christian Gonzalez's fault. Christian Gonzalez is releasing him to the inside and then tracking the flats. He's going to try to get underneath of something here while the edge defender is going to go try to force the quarterback or contain the quarterback, Easy touchdown for the Broncos, don't get me wrong. Am I saying it's Christian Gonzalez's fault? No, absolutely not. What I'm saying is in a small chink in the armor, there appears to be at times some communication issues to that side. Same play from the end zone angle. Like I said, this is after converting the 3rd and 10, where I believe there was an issue, between those guys being on the same page, Gonzalez, and I believe it's Hawkins, number 21. So there's a lot going on. It's possible that 21, had his eyes on the tight end who goes in motion, or I think he's actually a fullback, excuse me. And there's also a guard that pulls, the right guard pulls, a little counter step by the tailback. So what he's looking at, he could be seeing the guard, but what I think he sees is I think he's actually looking at Courtland Sutton. And Sutton releases to the inside, and then immediately his vision goes in here. It just is confusing to me that you would have that type of bust from a defense that's been playing at that at a high level against the pass in particular, in my opinion, in the last 8 or 10 weeks. I think if the Seahawks can, get opportunities to run the ball effectively, you'll probably see a very similar looking play to that. To Seattle's right, the same side where you have 21 and Gonzalez. See if they can recreate this dynamic. Again, the reality is, though, that New England's only given up one 300-yard passer in 2025. That was in week 1 against the Raiders, and I believe the second week they gave up 297 or 298. Other than that, no one's really even exceeded, I think, 260. Move backwards a little bit chronologically. We're going to be in the second quarter of the AFC divisional round matchup at home. Gonzalez spot shadowed up top. I'm going to give you some targets of him now. Keep in mind, I'm showing you plays as Seahawks fans intentionally, right, that where he's been beat. So this is what Kubiak and those guys, would have done, only in a far more detailed fashion, to try to attack a fantastic football player like a Christian Gonzalez. I believe you'd like to get them in one high looks. This ends up being man-free, cover 1. The nickel is going to blitz here. It ends up being a 5-man rush. I think you just need more guys allocated to stop a player the caliber of JSN. This is open over the middle. The throw is high from a C.J. Stroud standpoint. I don't think there's really any reason. It doesn't look like to me that there's a defensive tackle or anyone in the window as he's releasing this football that would account for or justify this throw being this high. Really a gimme interception for the Patriots there. I'll do the same play from the end zone angle. Gonzalez is off screen to our left into the boundary. Again, he's in a press man alignment. There does seem to be this dynamic where quick in-breaking routes have given him trouble, and I'll show you 3 reps against Zay Flowers and the Ravens in week 16 that kind of support that offering. Same play from the end zone angle, like I said. It's 11 personnel, and here's the stunt that these guys are running. They do a lot up front, if you ask me. Nose tackle is Barmore now in a pass rush situation, so he's going to cross face and actually run a pick. And then Williams is going to loop all the way around. 91 going on a B-gap rush. He's a very underrated player. I think it's Elijah Ponder. And then nickel DB off the edge is the blitzer Marcus Jones. Somebody has to be on the running back here. It's either Spillane or Jones, 25. Even though both of those guys are coming forward, one of them would pick up the running back if he released out into the flats immediately or if he settled underneath. In any case, you get an idea of the throw, but look at the separation that is there. I think JSN is one of the quicker, more agile guys in the league. I don't know that these guys are going to major in man in this game. There'll certainly be times where they want to play man, right? And I think it'll be up to Sam Darnold, JSN, and others to try to take advantage of that matchup as best they can. C.J. Stroud got nothing into the throw, didn't rotate his body at all. The right hip and the leg didn't really move forward at all. Poor job, if you ask me, of delivering the football. Really probably shouldn't have been an interception there. We're talking about, very small windows against most of the pass coverage schemes that they play. We're going to focus on this matchup here, 3 plays in a row. It'd be JSN against Zay Flowers. This one's in the first quarter. It's a 12 personnel group. This is a really good matchup, if you ask me, to kind of forecast what the types of routes you might see from JSN and how Sam Darnold tries to get connected with him. and B, some of the things the Patriots may avoid in this matchup. So with the running back motioning to the field, that's going to kind of hold field side defenders a little bit, but you get the tight end on a quick out, and then Zay Flowers underneath. This is a quick decision recognition by the quarterback, Lamar Jackson. And in this case, I think this is exactly what you would want from a Seahawks perspective, and that is the boundary side safety vacating with an out or anything by 2, leaving JSN, space between the top of the numbers and the hash, while Christian Gonzalez has outside leverage. Very difficult cover, obviously, on a guy like, Zay Flowers or JSN. If you got outside leverage, no safety help deep, so he's got to be cognizant of that. I think the Patriots want to try to avoid as much of this as possible, not because Christian Gonzalez isn't talented. You've already heard, my assertion. I think he would start for the Seahawks defense. It's because this is a very difficult cover if you're not going to get the boundary side inside linebacker in this window at all on an in cut, between 7 and 8 yards. Like I've said in this video and a couple of others, I do not expect them to major in man, but when they do show man, it'll be Kubiak's job to have Darnold prepared, and then Darnold recognize it on the field, maybe check them into a different route combination. That's one of the things Kubiak and those guys did to almost a 95% efficiency rating against the Rams in the NFC Championship game, was all of their route concepts were perfectly called to the coverage that they encountered. This is one that you can predict with a high degree of certainty. I think I've got this one 13 or 14 times in the film that I have, and it's both corners on the same side. So the Ravens have Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman up to the field. One fullback in the case of Pat Ricard, and that's why the Patriots have their base defense on the field here on a 1st and 10. Tight end set to the backside, and he'll be guarded by the safety. So really, you're getting man. From a Seahawks perspective, this will be Oots in as the fullback, maybe even 12 personnel. You see how they match it. I'm not sure what New England's going to do. My expectation is against 12 personnel, they're going to have different looks. Some base, 3-4/4-3. Some nickel, 4-2-5, maybe even their 5-1 that I talked about in the third preview video. So this is Zay Flowers' route. It's going to kind of make Gonzalez, go to the ground a little bit. You can see Gonzalez takes outside leverage, very similar to what I talked about on the previous play. The only difference is this is man. So he's trying to use the free safety in here to the middle, who obviously has his visual focus on Zay Flowers right now. The agility that Flowers has, similar to JSN, I would say. Maybe he's got more start-stop suddenness, but JSN, fantastic agility, and I think you can you would like to be able to recreate this route, this coverage. How do you know you're going to get it? Carlton Davis III, Christian Gonzalez, both on the same side. No corner down here to the bottom side of the field. At this point, we all know who their guys are. They got safety, number 31, guarding Mark Andrews. So from a Seattle perspective, is A.J. Barner going to give you the same dynamic against their safeties? I don't think he's got the same production over the course of his career, but he's been extremely efficient this year. If you're going to get man, I think you like your chances if A.J. Barner's seeing man and he's got this whole side of the field to work with, bringing this route back. Do I expect Seattle to use the same exact concepts that the Ravens did? No, these are ideas of the coverage that you might see against 21 personnel or 12, and then how Seattle could try to handle it. Another one from that same matchup. This will be the final play that we'll talk about from the Week 16 win. The Patriots came down at Baltimore and won 28-24. Once again, you've got corners over. So I know that a couple of times in the course of my previews, I've said that, hey, I'm trying to help you out, give you some intel, some things to look at pre-snap. This is a prime example, but it would involve you being active with your eyes, looking here, obviously trying to determine whether they're in a 1 high safety structure or a 2, and then also where is the outside corner. In this case, Christian Gonzalez, Carlton Davis III, again, both on the same side, corners over versus twins. The 2 tight ends into the boundary, Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, matched up with safeties. I'm not exactly sure who 15 is, to be honest with you. He may be a corner, but he's not a starting outside corner for them. So this is man-free, cover 1, however people want to refer to it. And they're trying to make the quarterback, Lamar Jackson, get rid of the ball quick by bringing, heavy pressure. 6-man rush allocation. You got to think one of these guys, one of these rushers, right, is responsible for the running back, depending on how the running back releases. Let's say for whatever reason Rasheen Ali released over here. Someone's going to have to deal with him. Maybe an outside linebacker peeling. So you could subtract someone from the rush here mentally if you want. But the point is, you got Zay Flowers down here on an out concept. Very similar to some stuff you'll see with JSN. I just feel like they're going to be risking giving up big plays if they leave whole swaths of the field, for JSN, but even Rashid Shaheed to a lesser extent, to access against their outside corners. They've played exceptional pass defense so far in 2025. I would caution maybe. They've shown this corners over so many times and played man out of it. I wonder if at some point you're going to see, the same setup and then Gonzalez bail to half, this safety bail to half, Carlton Davis III kind of sit in the flats, basically play a cover 2, looking for something like this to try to get a pick 6 from a hard corner perspective, or even play 2 read or palms whereby the safety and the corner are both reading number 2. It's not what we see here, and in fact, I haven't seen that on film. I'm just pointing things out to you how the Patriots, with 2 weeks of prep time, might try to change some of their coverage structure to catch Sam Darnold post-snap. They have to, if you ask me. They have to change some of these looks because, A, Kubiak's going to give them that 2 wide receiver look to one side. He's going to give them that 2 wide receiver look to one side. JSN's just been too efficient to be that predictable with some basic football formations. Now, the Broncos had the same thought, to be honest with you, in the AFC title game, and it certainly didn't work out. Yeah, the weather was a factor. They had a backup quarterback. So what the Patriots have been doing is absolutely working. I will give one more play here from a Christian Gonzalez perspective and just talk about his awareness. Sometimes the DBs are quote, beat, but they know the blitz. They can play a certain route because there shouldn't be time for the quarterback to get a throw off. And that's one of my problems with like PFF and grading systems, like talking about average separation allowed. A, you're not targeted. B, this is very reminiscent of something that I once heard Jimmy Smith, a veteran corner for the Ravens, explain to Marlon Humphrey, which is that, from a 21 personnel group or 22 personnel, everybody's going to be able to block this up and give the quarterback time. That doesn't really happen in this case, but my point is DBs know, they have an internal clock, just like quarterbacks do, how much time the quarterback should have to throw the football and what type of route that means they'll have to defend. Here's the line to gain right here. And so you can look at the orientation of Gonzalez compared to what we've seen on some of the other routes covering Zay Flowers. He's, of course, taking inside leverage, right? He's taking inside leverage. There's no help here at all, so he's trying to cut off that area of the field. I would say that I think he could play this better. It doesn't matter. Robert Spillane is already through. He's disrupted the quarterback. Gonzalez thought probably that he was going to get, maybe an outbreaking route, or he was going to get some kind of settling down here, at the sticks after the receiver threatened the vertical. No, the guy ran right by him. Do I expect to see that happen in the game? That's not the reason why I'm showing you this. I'm showing you this because I think Gonzalez and all of their DBs are very smart. I think they know the blitz structure or the blitz that's being called and understand how that relates to, what routes they'll most likely see. How that matches up with the Seahawks, well, that changes it a little bit because Seattle's been exceptional in pass pro this season, giving Sam Darnold time, even against some heavy blitz structures, to allow him to get time to attack those guys on an island. Gonzalez being on an island, CD3 on an island against JSN, I just don't think that's going to be what New England majors in this football game. JSN he's too dangerous, too skilled. Him and Sam Darnold are excellent. They're on the same page. And you're talking about a balanced wide receiver, as balanced a wide receiver as there is in the world. I think JSN's he's a unique problem for a defense. The Flowers film gives us a little bit of insight into what the Patriots might want to avoid. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Zay Flowers, right, as a Ravens fan, but JSN's, the way that he threatens routes is more variable. Not just the depth, deep routes, vertical, intermediate, short concepts, but horizontally too, in cuts or out cuts, To me, he's just too much and too talented to allow anyone to try to cover him on an island, but I could be wrong. Maybe CD3 and Christian Gonzalez are going to come in and play a lot of man, try to bring pressure, allocate extra guys to stop the run game. I don't think so. I think New England's going to have a balanced approach that tries to defend as many things as possible, the run and the pass, without giving up big plays. Am I saying they'll never play man? No. Certainly be times on third down when they want to bring pressure. And those will be opportunities for the receivers for Seattle, JSN, Cooper Kupp, Rashid Shaheed, to make a play. One catch, one off-balance move by a DB, one time getting turned around, kind of like you saw in the last play, but there was no time for C.J. Stroud to throw the football. It could be a dramatic difference in the score at the time and then the overall outcome. I have multiple times this year gone on record as saying I think the Seahawks, if they avoid turnovers, are a very difficult team to beat. I'm not saying impossible, but here is no different for me. With the way that the Patriots have turned the football over lately in the playoffs, there's going to be a lot expected of both quarterbacks, right? Sam Darnold and Drake May. They both had issues with turnovers. Mays have been more so in the playoffs, even though he didn't commit a turnover in the AFC Championship game, right? Those guys, both quarterbacks, they're going to have to, recognize fronts and coverages, in some cases handle protections or help the offensive line get in the right call. Maybe they're not ultimately responsible. Deliver the football to the right guy in space, right, while navigating pressure in the pocket. To me, the quarterback that avoids turnovers, right, puts his team obviously in the best situation to win the game. But along with that, the guy that makes a play. Quarterback-receiver combo that makes a play. And, Stephon Diggs been super efficient this year. The Patriots have other guys that they trust. I think, Seattle has the better receiving core overall. And JSN is the guy that presents the most danger without saying. New England did turn the football over 5 times in the AFC playoffs, but none against Denver. Drake May only threw for 86 yards. I know that, the weather was a factor as well, but, didn't turn the football over. That's critical, I think, for both quarterbacks. The Seahawks have so many weapons on offense, playmakers on defense, pass rush guys, a great scheme on the defensive side. I think they've got a very good chance to win this football game. In particular, if they can be +1 turnovers, that puts them in a different category. That's an increased level of opportunity to win this game. Anything +2, and it's just going to be a real uphill climb for the Patriots. Conversely, and this is how good I think the Seahawks are, if they're -1 turnover margin, as long as it's not, a pick six or a fumble that gets taken back to the house, if Seattle's -1 turnover margin, or even -2, they've proven that they can still stay in football games. The same Texans team that went to New England and turned the football over 5 times, but was still in the game for much of the second half, that Texans team, I think, was +3 or maybe +4 turnover margin. I may be misremembering. I may be thinking of a different game for Seattle, but I know they turned the football over a ton that night, and Seattle was still able to get the win. Granted, that game was at home. I think JSN, Cooper Kupp, Shaheed, and others in the pass game, they present issues here. And that's what makes me convinced that the Patriots are going to be in a balanced defensive structure. Maybe not all zone coverages because they can't be too predictable. And that's where the Kubiak factor comes in. Sam Darnold is a part of this as well. In the NFC Championship game, Kubiak was borderline perfect, and the offensive staff predicting the coverage that the Rams were going to be in. Granted, it was the 3rd game they played against them. And that kind of makes this whole Gonzalez versus JSN matchup maybe a little overblown. Because I think what it really comes down to is Kubiak's ability, along with Sam Darnold, to have studied and deciphered or figured out the expected coverage in certain situations and then have the right play calls at those times. Then it's up to Sam Darnold to recognize it post-snap and guys to be in the right spot. I think New England probably saw the NFC Championship film and said, or at some degree, from a coaching standpoint, okay, Kubiak's got a really good handle on their coverages. We might have to change things up a little bit so that he isn't as sure. And then Sam Darnold doesn't play with as much confidence because post-snap, whether he's in the shotgun or under center, he's not seeing things as quickly and as cleanly as he did against the Rams. They really, thwarted so many things that the Rams wanted to do defensively, whether it was, 1st and 2nd down or 3rd down, obvious passing situations. In any case, If you guys enjoyed this video, please let me know in the comment section. Number one, try to do as many full-length previews as I possibly can. Hope to get another one out on Tuesday afternoon or Tuesday evening. These are all going to be full-length, long-form, I should say, film studies. If you enjoyed it, please let me know in the comment section, like I said. And finally, if you think other Seahawks fans, or maybe even Patriots fans, would enjoy this film study look that I consider to be a pretty exhaustive preview of this matchup, but also how the Patriots, I think, are going to rely on, I don't want to say safe, but more balanced coverages that allow them to stop the run or give them a chance to stop the run while being sound against the pass. If you think other football fans, Seahawks or Patriots otherwise, would enjoy this film study look, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.